Rick Harrison, the well-known personality behind the popular reality TV show Pawn Stars, recently found himself in the center of a shocking event that has captivated the attention of millions. News spread like wildfire when it was revealed that he had received a life sentence. It was something no one expected, not even those closest to him. This sudden, unexpected twist in his life sparked not just media frenzy but also a wave of curiosity and concern from fans and the general public alike. What happened? Why? And how did Rick, a man so often seen as calm and collected, react to this life-altering moment? These questions created a buzz across social media, leading to widespread discussions, debates, and emotional responses. The most shocking part of this entire situation wasn't just the fact that Rick received such a heavy sentence, but the emotional outpouring that followed. Rick has built his career on being a calm, steady figure on TV. He's known for his quick wit, sharp business acumen, and ability to navigate tough situations without breaking down. But when the life sentence news hit, something within him broke. His emotional response was captured and shared across various platforms. It wasn't just the fact that he was facing such a daunting future, it was the raw, unfiltered emotion he displayed that took everyone by surprise. Fans who have followed Rick through thick and thin were left stunned. The idea of seeing such an emotional side to someone they've watched for years was both shocking and heartbreaking. How could a man who seemed so invincible on TV break down in the face of something so harsh? It was a side of Rick they had never seen before, and it left them wondering what is going on beneath the surface. What is this life sentence truly about, and what did it mean for Rick as a person? The curiosity around this situation only deepened as the emotional video of his reaction began circulating online. His vulnerability in that moment was palpable. It made people realize that even celebrities who seem untouchable and unaffected by the struggles of everyday life have their own personal battles to fight. The video quickly went viral, sparking a wave of conversations about the true nature of celebrity, the pressure of living in the public eye, and the hidden emotional turmoil that may accompany such a life. Fans flooded social media with comments of support and confusion. Some expressed sympathy for Rick, while others speculated on what could have led to such an emotional outburst. Was this an overreaction to the life sentence, or was there more to the story that the public wasn't privy to? What was Rick's past like? Had he been holding on to a personal tragedy or struggle for years, only to have it all surface now in this overwhelming moment? The public's reaction was a mix of concern, sympathy, and disbelief. This emotional moment made people realize that Rick Harrison was more than just a TV personality. He was a human being facing unimaginable challenges. For the fans who had watched him for years on Pawn Stars, this was a moment that would forever change their perception of him. No longer was he just the guy behind the counter at the pawn shop, he was a man dealing with the weight of a life sentence, and that brought with it an entirely new set of emotions. His fans, who had always seen him as a figure of strength, now saw a different side of him, someone vulnerable, someone who was struggling, someone who could be broken. This emotional reaction raised many questions about Rick's life before this shocking moment. Was there a build-up to this point? What had he gone through in his personal life that led him to such an emotional reaction? Was this the culmination of years of hardship, or was it simply the shock of the news hitting him in an unexpected way? People were curious about his past, his struggles, and the true reasons behind his reaction. The public wanted answers, but only Rick could provide them, and it seemed that he was keeping quiet, allowing the speculation to run wild. This only made the situation even more intriguing. Rick's fans were left with a complex mixture of emotions after watching the viral video. They felt sympathy for him, but they also felt frustrated that they didn't have all the answers. It was clear that there was much more to the story than what was being revealed. And as the curiosity around the situation continued to grow, so did the attention Rick was receiving. Some speculated that this emotional moment was a turning point in his life, something that would change him forever. Others wondered if it would lead to a change in the way he presented himself to the public. The man they had always known as calm, collected, and in control had shown a side of himself they never knew existed, and they weren't sure how to process it. In the midst of all the speculation and curiosity, one thing remained clear: this emotional moment had captured the attention of millions. It wasn't just the news of the life sentence that had made waves, it was the vulnerability Rick showed in the face of it. His emotional reaction was a reminder that behind the cameras and the fame, celebrities are still human beings with their own struggles and challenges. The life sentence may have been the event that triggered Rick's emotional breakdown, but it was the rawness of that moment that made it unforgettable. It left fans with more questions than answers, creating a sense of curiosity that would likely linger for some time. As people continued to watch the viral video and discuss Rick's emotional reaction, the situation began to take on a life of its own. What had started as a shocking piece of news turned into a broader conversation about the pressures of fame, the impact of personal struggles, and the emotional toll that can come with facing something as life-changing as a life sentence. The curiosity surrounding Rick Harrison's emotional moment was only growing, and as the story unfolded, it became clear that this would be a defining moment in his life and career. When Rick Harrison's emotional moment went viral, it did more than just shock his fans, it stirred something deep within them. They weren't just surprised to see this side of him, but they were also left with a burning curiosity about why this particular reaction had taken over the internet. What was it about his emotional outburst that made it stand out so much? Was it simply the weight of the life sentence that pushed him to this point, or was there something else bubbling underneath the surface that we as the audience couldn't see? The video itself didn't just show Rick Harrison reacting to a life sentence, it revealed a man grappling with something much deeper. As millions watched the clip, their first reactions were of disbelief. Rick had always been known as a rock on Pawn Stars, the steady, pragmatic figure who rarely lost his composure in front of the camera. He was the type of person viewers relied on to be calm and measured, even in stressful situations. But this emotional breakdown seemed to break all the rules of the persona he had so carefully built. For a moment it was as though the curtain had been pulled back, and the man who had been a steady figure for so long was now vulnerable, exposed and human. This is what made the moment so compelling. It wasn't just that a celebrity had experienced a difficult situation, it was that Rick had allowed the world to see him at his lowest, most vulnerable point. People often forget that celebrities are real people facing the same types of emotional challenges that anyone might. The idea that Rick Harrison could break down emotionally, just like any regular person would, struck a chord with viewers. This sudden emotional outburst created a moment of connection between Rick and his fans, making them see him not just as the man behind the pawn shop counter, but as a person with a deeply personal private side. The curiosity around Rick's emotional moment didn't stop at the video itself. It sparked an avalanche of questions: what had happened in his life to bring him to this moment? Was this life sentence truly the breaking point, or had there been other struggles along the way that the public had never been privy to? Viewers began to dig deeper into Rick's life, hoping to piece together the story behind his emotional response. While some tried to piece together the public details of his past, others wondered what had been hidden from view. What had Rick gone through that had led to this kind of emotional reaction? Was this something recent, or had he been carrying this burden for years? This shift in the way people saw Rick Harrison wasn't just about the viral video. It was about the layers of mystery and curiosity that suddenly surrounded him. As the video made its rounds on the internet, people's imaginations began to run wild. Was there something more behind the life sentence that the public wasn't told? Was this emotional breakdown a sign that Rick had been dealing with personal demons for years? Viewers were no longer just watching a video, they were now looking for answers, eager to understand what had led to such a raw moment of vulnerability. One of the most powerful aspects of this viral moment was how it forced people to confront the reality that fame doesn't protect anyone from emotional pain. For years, Rick had been a well-known figure on television, and the audience had grown accustomed to seeing him on their screens as the owner of a successful pawn shop. But the emotional video shattered the perception of Rick as just another celebrity with an easy life. It was a reminder that no one, regardless of their fame or success, is immune to deep emotional struggles. Rick Harrison was just like any other person facing a crisis, and his reaction made that painfully clear. The curiosity continued to grow as more details about the life sentence emerged. What had Rick been involved in? Why was he facing such a severe punishment? This wasn't just a story about a celebrity's emotional breakdown, it was about a real person, someone who had to face the consequences of their actions in the most profound way possible. As news spread, people began to wonder if this was the beginning of a new chapter in Rick's life, one that would be defined not by his television persona, but by his personal struggles and the aftermath of this life sentence. But what really left people guessing was the silence that followed. Rick's emotional moment was raw, but it was also full of unanswered questions. He didn't speak publicly in the immediate aftermath, leaving fans and the media to speculate about what was really going on. The lack of explanation only fueled the curiosity even more. Why had Rick stayed quiet? Was he struggling to find the right words? Was he still processing everything that had happened, or was there something deeper, something he wasn't ready to share with the world just yet? The silence created a sense of anticipation. Fans who had been glued to their screens, eager to know more, were left wondering whether Rick would open up in the future. Would he tell his side of the story? Was he planning to address his life sentence and the emotional breakdown in his own time? Or would he continue to let the world speculate and fill in the blanks with their own assumptions? This tension between what the public knew and what they wanted to know only made the situation even more compelling. The curiosity about Rick Harrison's emotional reaction became more than just a fleeting moment of sympathy. It became a symbol of how fragile the human experience can be, even for those who appear to have it all together. The curiosity surrounding his emotional breakdown went beyond just the video. It extended to the mystery of Rick's personal life and the deeper unspoken struggles he might have been facing. Fans were no longer just reacting to the video itself, they were piecing together a narrative of their own, trying to understand the man behind the public figure. In the end, what made Rick Harrison's emotional moment so viral was the fact that it touched something deep within the hearts of viewers. It wasn't just a celebrity breakdown, it was a reminder that behind every public persona is a human being, and sometimes that human being is struggling in ways we can't see. The viral reaction to Rick's emotional moment was a reflection of how we as people long for connection and understanding, especially when it comes to those we admire. We are all curious about the lives of others, and in this case, Rick's emotional breakdown gave us a glimpse into a side of him that we never expected to see. It wasn't just a moment of vulnerability, it was a moment that left the world with a hunger for more answers, more insight into the life of a man who had suddenly become a symbol of the emotional challenges that come with fame. Rick Harrison has always been a well-known personality in the world of reality television. As the face of Pawn Stars, he has entertained millions with his calm, collected demeanor and his ability to handle all kinds of situations with ease. Over the years, he built an image of someone who could stay cool under pressure. Fans admired him not only for his expertise in running a pawn shop but also for his steady, no-nonsense approach to life. His fans had come to know him as a figure who could handle anything that came his way. However, in a stunning and unexpected turn of events, Rick's emotional reaction to a life sentence left his followers with more questions than answers, creating a sense of curiosity that would not be easily satisfied. What made Rick's emotional reaction so significant was not just the fact that he was facing a life sentence. It was the fact that in that moment he showed a side of himself that was completely different from the public figure people had come to know. For so many years, Rick had been portrayed as the unflappable businessman, the guy who could handle even the toughest negotiations or most difficult customers with grace. He was always the one people could count on to keep things under control. So when he was confronted with the news of his life sentence, his emotional response shocked everyone who had been watching. People have always viewed celebrities as larger-than-life figures, immune to the struggles and challenges that ordinary people face. This is why seeing Rick so vulnerable, so clearly affected by the news, struck a chord with so many. It was like watching a superhero show signs of weakness. Fans were left not only shocked by the emotional breakdown but also full of questions. What happened? Why did Rick of all people react this way? Was this the result of years of pent-up emotions finally being released, or was it the immediate shock of the news that caused him to break down? As the video of his emotional reaction began to spread, it created a ripple effect that reached far beyond the world of Pawn Stars. The public's curiosity about Rick's personal life, his past and the reasons behind his emotional outburst only grew stronger. People began to question everything they thought they knew about him. Was this a man who had been hiding his emotions for years? Had he been struggling with personal issues behind the scenes, something the public had never seen? Or was this life sentence just the final blow in a long line of difficult circumstances? The curiosity only intensified as more details began to emerge about Rick's past. Fans and followers wanted to know more about his life before he became a television personality. What had he been through in his private life that led to this moment? Had he experienced personal tragedies, or was there something in his past that could explain why he had such a strong emotional reaction? People weren't just interested in the details of the life sentence itself, they wanted to know what had been happening in Rick's life that made this moment so deeply emotional for him. But the more people asked these questions, the more they realized they weren't likely to get the answers anytime soon. Rick didn't immediately address the situation in the public eye, choosing instead to remain silent for a while. This only fueled the curiosity further. Why wasn't he speaking out? Was he still processing everything that had happened? Was he trying to protect his privacy, or was there something else going on that he wasn't ready to share? The silence left fans hanging, their minds racing with possibilities. Some speculated that Rick might eventually open up about his emotional response, while others wondered if he would keep this part of his life private forever. The silence created a sense of mystery around Rick Harrison. Instead of clearing up the situation, it only deepened the questions. People were no longer just curious about why he reacted the way he did, they were curious about Rick as a person. What was he really like behind the scenes? What had he experienced in his personal life that had led him to this point? The more people thought about it, the more they realized that they only knew Rick as the star of Pawn Stars, but they didn't know the full story of who he was outside the spotlight. This left a sense of longing among fans as they wished they could understand more about the man they had watched for so long. As the viral video continued to circulate, people couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would Rick ever address the life sentence and his emotional breakdown in public? Would he talk about the things that led to this moment, or would he continue to keep them hidden? The unanswered questions created a sense of anticipation. Fans were eager to hear what Rick had to say, but they were also aware that he may choose to keep this chapter of his life private. His silence only made the situation feel more mysterious, as though there was a deeper story waiting to be told. In the midst of all the curiosity, one thing became clear: Rick Harrison had shown his true self in a way that no one had expected. For so many years he had been the face of a successful television show, a well-known public figure who had built his career on being calm, collected, and in control. But when faced with a life sentence, Rick revealed that, like everyone else, he had his own struggles and vulnerabilities. The emotional breakdown wasn't just a sign of weakness, it was a reminder that even those who appear to have everything under control are still human. And that, more than anything, is what left people curious. As the story unfolded, it became clear that this was more than just a celebrity news story. It was a glimpse into the emotional life of a man who had been under the public's watch for years, and it left people wondering what else they didn't know about him. Rick Harrison had become more than just a reality TV star, he had become a symbol of the complexities that lie beneath the surface of public figures. The curiosity about his life, his past, and the emotional reaction to his life sentence would continue to captivate his fans, leaving them with more questions than answers. And for those who had been following him for years, it was a reminder that sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that are hidden out of sight. The news of Rick Harrison's life sentence shook the world of reality television. He had been a staple of Pawn Stars, a calm and steady figure who seemed unshakable. But when the shocking news hit that he was facing a life sentence, everything changed. The public was stunned. Rick's emotional response was not only unexpected, it was raw and vulnerable. It was a moment that millions of fans never saw coming. People who had watched him for years on television were left wondering how someone who had always seemed so in control could break down in such a way. What happened? Why did he react like this? And perhaps more importantly, what did this reveal about the man they had been watching for so long? The curiosity surrounding Rick's emotional moment was so intense that it sparked countless conversations across social media and news outlets. What really captured the attention of the world was not just the news of the life sentence itself, but the emotional video that followed. People didn't expect to see Rick so broken, so vulnerable. For years he had been the image of control, whether on TV or in the public eye. His calm demeanor and clear-headed decision-making had made him a beloved figure among fans. He was someone who seemed to have it all figured out, but when the life sentence news came, Rick's carefully constructed persona was shattered. The man who had always seemed unflappable was now openly grappling with the weight of a life sentence. It wasn't just shocking, it was heartbreaking. The emotional reaction went viral for all the right reasons. Fans who had grown to trust Rick as a rock in the storm of the TV world couldn't help but feel a sense of connection when they saw him in such a fragile state. They saw him as more than just a TV star, they saw him as a person, someone who could feel pain, who could be vulnerable. This moment of emotion was not just the reaction of a celebrity, it was the reaction of a man who had faced a deep personal crisis. It made people question the idea of fame itself. Here was someone who had been living a very public life, yet had to confront something so devastating in private. It reminded everyone that despite their public personas, celebrities are just like everyone else, they have their own struggles, their own fears, and their own emotional battles. As the video continued to circulate online, people became more and more curious. What had led to this emotional breakdown? Was it simply the shock of receiving such a life-altering sentence, or was there something deeper at play? Viewers didn't just want to know what had happened, they wanted to know what had been going on in Rick's life that had brought him to this point. Had he been hiding his emotions for years? Was there something in his past that had been weighing him down, something he had kept hidden from the public eye? The curiosity surrounding Rick's personal life grew stronger with every passing hour. Fans who had seen him on television for so long wanted to know more about the man behind the pawn shop counter. They were no longer satisfied with just watching his interactions on TV. They wanted to know the full story, they wanted answers. Rick's emotional moment left many wondering whether this was the result of a series of events leading up to this point, or if it was simply the shock of the life sentence that had caused the breakdown. People began to speculate, was there more to the story that hadn't been told? What had happened in Rick's life that could have led to such an intense emotional reaction? Fans who had followed his journey on television began to look for signs, clues, or any hints that might explain his breakdown. Had Rick been hiding something from his fans for years? Had he been dealing with personal struggles in silence, something that was only now coming to light? These questions flooded the minds of viewers. No one knew the full story, and that lack of information only made the curiosity grow. What added to the mystery was Rick's decision not to speak out immediately. After the video went viral, people expected him to address the situation directly. But Rick chose to remain silent for a while, leaving the public to fill in the gaps. Why wasn't he speaking out? Was he too overwhelmed by the situation to talk? Was he unsure about how to handle such a public crisis? Or was he protecting his personal life, choosing to keep his feelings and the details of the case private? This silence created an air of mystery around Rick, making people wonder even more about what was really going on behind the scenes. The public, hungry for answers, was left to speculate and guess. They wanted to know why Rick wasn't talking, what he was thinking, and whether he would ever share the truth behind his emotional reaction. The silence also led to a growing sense of anticipation. People who had watched Rick for years were eager to hear from him. They wanted to understand what he was going through, to hear him speak about what had led to this emotional breakdown. Would he ever address his emotions publicly? Or would he continue to keep them to himself, leaving fans to wonder about the deeper struggles he had been facing? The longer Rick remained silent, the stronger the curiosity became. Fans were waiting for him to open up, to give them a glimpse into his personal life and the challenges he had been dealing with. The anticipation built with every passing day, as people eagerly waited for Rick to speak out. This silence created a sense of suspense, as fans could not predict what would come next. Would Rick reveal more about the life sentence and how it had affected him? Would he finally share the personal struggles that had been hidden from the public for so long? Or would he choose to remain quiet and let the public continue to speculate? The mystery surrounding his emotional reaction and the life sentence created a perfect storm of curiosity. People were left wondering how Rick's story would unfold and whether he would ever open up about what had really been going on behind the scenes. For many fans, this emotional breakdown was a turning point in their relationship with Rick Harrison. They had always seen him as a figure of strength, someone who could handle anything that came his way. But this moment of vulnerability shattered that image. It revealed that even someone as seemingly invincible as Rick Harrison could be broken. This made people feel closer to him in a way. They were no longer just watching a TV personality, they were seeing a real person, someone who had emotions, someone who was facing a real and difficult challenge. The curiosity about Rick's personal life only grew stronger from this point onward. Fans were eager to understand the man behind the television screen, to learn about the struggles he had faced and how he was dealing with the aftermath of such a life-altering event. The viral spread of Rick's emotional moment not only raised questions about his personal life, but also sparked a broader conversation about the challenges of fame and the emotional toll it can take on public figures. In many ways, his breakdown became a symbol of the hidden struggles that celebrities often face behind closed doors. Fans began to reflect on the emotional burden that comes with living under the constant scrutiny of the public eye. Rick's emotional moment was a reminder that fame doesn't shield anyone from personal hardships. Instead, it sometimes intensifies the pressure and magnifies the emotional weight. The curiosity surrounding Rick's emotional reaction was not just about him, it was about the bigger picture of what it means to be a public figure and how we as an audience view their personal struggles.
Rick Harrison's life sentence, which went viral, opened up a floodgate of curiosity and emotions that millions of fans never expected to experience. For so many years, Rick had been the rock-solid figure on Pawn Stars, someone fans trusted and admired. He was a strong, dependable personality, always in control and always ready for whatever challenges came his way. The idea that such a figure could break down emotionally was unfathomable to many, and this was exactly what made his emotional reaction so compelling. The viral video of Rick's emotional response sparked an intense curiosity about his life, his personal struggles, and the real story behind the public figure people had come to know and love. Suddenly, Rick wasn't just the star of a TV show, he was a man dealing with an overwhelming, life-changing event. The video of Rick's emotional reaction to the life sentence quickly spread across the internet, capturing the attention of fans, celebrities, and media outlets alike. As viewers watched Rick break down in a way that was completely out of character for him, they couldn't help but be filled with questions.
What had led to such an emotional reaction? Was it really just the shock of receiving a life sentence, or was there something deeper at play? The vulnerability that Rick showed in the video created a connection with viewers who saw him not just as a reality TV star but as a person facing a deep personal crisis. This emotional moment humanized him in a way that hadn't been seen before. Fans who had followed Rick's journey on Pawn Stars for years were left reeling from the news. They couldn't understand how someone who had always appeared so calm and composed on TV could suddenly lose control in such a way. People were used to seeing Rick handle everything from rare antiques to difficult customers with the calm precision of a seasoned expert. He was always the one people relied on to stay steady in the face of chaos. Yet here he was, reacting to the news of his life sentence with an emotional outpouring that left his fans with more questions than answers. The curiosity grew as people began to ask, what happened to Rick? What was he going through that caused such a dramatic response? It wasn't just the breakdown that made people curious, it was what happened next. After the emotional video went viral, there was a long period of silence. Rick did not immediately speak out about the incident or explain his emotional reaction. This silence created an air of mystery that only intensified the curiosity surrounding him. Why wasn't he talking? Why wasn't he addressing the public and letting them know what was really going on? Fans who had watched him on TV for so long were used to seeing him talk things out, especially in difficult situations. The fact that Rick remained silent only made people more intrigued. They wondered if there was something more to the story that Rick wasn't ready to share, or if he simply needed time to process everything before speaking out. The curiosity about Rick's emotional moment grew even stronger as fans began to speculate about the reasons behind the life sentence. What had happened in Rick's life to lead him to this point? Had he been hiding personal struggles all this time? Was the life sentence the result of something that had been brewing for years, or was it the final straw that pushed him to his breaking point? People began to search for any clues that might explain his reaction. Some dug into his past, trying to understand his personal life. Others looked for signs of stress or emotional turmoil that could have been building up behind the scenes. The more they searched, the more they realized that they didn't know Rick as well as they thought they did. This moment of emotional vulnerability was a turning point. Fans began to see Rick Harrison not just as a TV personality but as a person with real struggles, just like anyone else. The emotional breakdown revealed a side of him that was completely unexpected. It made people rethink their view of celebrity and fame. Before this moment, Rick had been seen as a steady, unflappable figure. Now, after the emotional outburst, he was someone who was grappling with real personal challenges. The emotional breakdown shattered the public's perception of him as an invincible TV star and revealed him to be a man who was just as vulnerable as anyone else. This made fans connect with him in a way they never had before. They saw him as a person they could relate to, someone who had been through difficult times and was facing the consequences of his actions. But the curiosity didn't stop there. As time passed and Rick remained silent, people began to wonder what the future held for him. Would he eventually open up about his emotional response and the life sentence? Would he explain the events that had led to his breakdown, or would he continue to keep those details private? Fans couldn't help but speculate. Some believed Rick was simply processing everything, while others thought he might be trying to protect his privacy. The uncertainty created a sense of anticipation. People were eager to hear what Rick had to say, but they weren't sure if he would ever speak out. The longer he stayed silent, the more people's imaginations began to run wild, wondering what was really going on behind closed doors. In the weeks and months that followed, Rick's emotional moment remained at the forefront of people's minds. The public curiosity never really subsided. Fans continued to speculate, hoping for answers that never came. The emotional breakdown had left people feeling unsettled, and they were desperate for some sort of closure. They wanted to understand why Rick had reacted the way he did, and they wanted to know what had led to such a life-changing event. But even with the viral video, the silence that followed left many questions unanswered. As the story unfolded, one thing became clear: Rick Harrison's emotional breakdown was not just about the life sentence, it was about the struggles that everyone faces behind the scenes. It was a reminder that celebrities, no matter how much fame or fortune they have, are still human beings who experience pain, fear, and uncertainty. Rick's emotional moment brought these universal truths to the surface. It showed fans that despite his public persona, Rick was not immune to life's toughest challenges. His breakdown was a testament to the emotional toll that life's hardships can take, and it gave fans a glimpse into the reality that even the most famous figures have their own personal battles to fight. In the end, the viral video and the curiosity it sparked became a turning point for Rick Harrison. It forced the public to reconsider their view of him in the world of reality television. His emotional breakdown made him more relatable and human than ever before, and it reminded everyone that no matter who you are or how much success you've had, you are not immune to the emotional struggles that come with life's challenges. It was a powerful moment that left a lasting impact, not just on Rick's fans but on the entire world. Rick Harrison, the well-known star of Pawn Stars, had always been regarded as a calm, controlled figure on television. He built his reputation on being the steady hand in the midst of chaos, the one who could always stay composed while dealing with difficult customers or rare, often valuable, items. Fans came to admire him for his expertise, his business acumen, and his ability to manage the family business with a sense of ease and professionalism. But then something happened that shattered the calm and left his fans and the public reeling. Rick's emotional reaction to a life sentence went viral, and the world was left wondering how such a strong, composed figure could be brought to tears. The video of Rick's emotional breakdown was not just another moment of celebrity drama, it was different. There was something real and raw about his response that hit viewers hard. Rick wasn't acting, he wasn't playing a role, he was showing a side of himself that few people had ever seen before. A vulnerable, deeply affected man who was grappling with an unimaginable situation. His reaction raised more questions than it answered. What had brought him to this point? How had someone so steady, so calculated, suddenly been thrown into such an emotional state? The public, who had been following him for years, couldn't help but feel that there was more to the story than just the shock of the sentence itself. They wanted answers. As the video went viral, fans and media outlets began to dig deeper. They wanted to understand what had caused this dramatic shift in Rick's behavior. Was it just the sudden shock of a life sentence that had caused him to break down, or had something been building up for years? People who had followed Rick's life on TV began to question everything they thought they knew about him. What had happened in his personal life to lead to this moment? Was this a side of Rick that had been hidden for years? And if so, why had he kept it a secret? For so many years, Rick had been portrayed as the reliable, unflappable character on Pawn Stars. He was always in control, always calm under pressure. So to see him react in such a raw and emotional way was a wake-up call for his fans. The curious thing about Rick's breakdown was that it was so unexpected. People had come to associate him with being in charge, with running the pawn shop and making tough decisions without letting his emotions show. The emotional outburst was a complete contrast to the persona he had built over the years, and that contrast was what made it so shocking. It left people wondering, what happened behind the scenes? What was really going on in Rick's life? The curiosity about Rick's emotional reaction only grew as time went on. The silence that followed his emotional breakdown only added fuel to the fire. After the video went viral, Rick didn't immediately address the situation. He didn't release a statement or talk about the life sentence in the media. This silence left fans and the public in suspense. They wanted to know why he wasn't speaking out, why he wasn't sharing his side of the story. Some speculated that Rick was still processing everything, while others thought that he might be keeping things private for personal reasons. Whatever the case, the silence only made the curiosity even more intense. People were left to fill in the gaps themselves, wondering what was going on in Rick's mind. They wanted answers, but Rick wasn't giving them. The mystery surrounding Rick's emotional reaction didn't just end with his silence. Fans began to dig into his past, trying to understand if there had been any warning signs or moments that might have hinted at what he was going through. People who had watched him on Pawn Stars for years tried to find any clues that could explain his emotional reaction. Had Rick been hiding his emotions for years? Was there something in his past that had led him to this point? Some fans began to speculate that maybe Rick had been struggling with personal issues behind the scenes, things that hadn't been revealed on the show. This only added to the intrigue. Fans felt like they didn't know the full story, and that sense of mystery only deepened as time went on. As the public continued to wonder about Rick's emotional breakdown, the question on everyone's mind became, what happens next? Would Rick eventually speak out and explain what had led to his emotional response? Would he address the life sentence, or would he continue to stay silent? The longer Rick remained quiet, the more the curiosity grew. Fans and followers alike were left in a state of anticipation. They wanted to hear from Rick, to hear his side of the story, but they were unsure whether he would ever open up. This uncertainty made the situation even more intriguing. It wasn't just about the life sentence anymore, it was about Rick's personal journey and whether he would ever reveal the full truth to the public. The longer the silence stretched on, the more the public began to question whether Rick would ever truly open up. Some began to think that he might keep everything private, choosing not to share the emotional details of his life with the world. Others hoped that eventually, he would come to terms with everything and speak out about what he was going through. The uncertainty created an air of suspense, and the public curiosity grew stronger with each passing day. But beyond the unanswered questions, there was something even more important happening. Rick's emotional reaction had humanized him in a way that had never been done before. For years, people had watched him on TV and seen him as a steady, reliable figure. They admired his ability to stay calm and collected no matter what happened. But after his emotional breakdown, people saw him in a completely new light. They saw him not just as a reality TV star, but as a person who was facing a difficult and life-altering situation. The emotional breakdown allowed fans to connect with Rick in a way they never had before. They saw him as someone who was vulnerable, someone who could be deeply affected by life's challenges. In many ways, it made him more relatable to his fans. The curiosity surrounding Rick's emotional moment didn't just come from the fact that he had reacted emotionally to a life sentence. It came from the realization that this was a man who had been living a very public life, but who was now facing a personal crisis. The curiosity was driven by the desire to know what was really going on behind the scenes. Fans were no longer content with just watching Rick on television. They wanted to understand the full picture of his life. They wanted to know what had led to his emotional breakdown, what had been happening in his personal life that might have made this moment so powerful. They wanted to see beyond the public persona and get a glimpse of the real man behind the camera. As time passed and Rick's emotional breakdown continued to be a topic of conversation, the curiosity about him only intensified. Fans and media outlets alike were captivated by the mystery surrounding his emotional reaction. The silence, the unanswered questions, and the rawness of the moment all combined to create a story that was both compelling and heart-wrenching. Rick Harrison had been a symbol of strength for so many years, and when he showed his vulnerability, it only made people more curious to know the full story. The emotional breakdown wasn't just about the life sentence, it was about the deeper, more personal struggles that people, even celebrities, face when they are forced to confront the toughest moments of their lives.